Most people think of vitamin D as just another nutrient like vitamin C or B12, but here's what almost no one realizes: vitamin D is not just a vitamin, it's actually a hormone. And that makes it completely different from the rest. Hormones are chemical messengers. They control and regulate countless functions inside your body. Imagine having a central switch that controls over 200 genes, turning them on and off, regulating how your body operates. This is what vitamin D does every single day. Without it, those genes don't get activated, and your body can't function the way it's supposed to. It's like trying to run a city when the power grid is shut down. Nothing works properly. That's why a deficiency in vitamin D doesn't show up as just one problem. It creates a chain reaction across your bones, your muscles, your brain, your immune system, and even your metabolism. It's not just about weak bones. It's about your entire system slowly shutting down without you even realizing it. When you think about strong bones, most people immediately picture calcium. And yes, calcium is important, but here's the catch. Without vitamin D, your body can't absorb calcium properly. You could be drinking milk, eating leafy greens, or even taking calcium supplements, but if vitamin D is missing, all of that calcium is just passing through your system without being used. Over time, this creates a silent weakness in your bones. They lose density, they become fragile, and you might not even notice until one day a small fall, or even just bending the wrong way, leads to a fracture. That's why so many people in their 40s, 50s, and beyond suddenly develop osteoporosis, not because their body didn't have enough calcium, but because vitamin D was never there to unlock it. Think of vitamin D as the key that opens the door for calcium to actually do its job. Without that key, the door stays locked, and your bones slowly crumble from the inside out. What's really fascinating, and at the same time frightening, is how vitamin D connects directly to your brain. Low vitamin D doesn't just affect your bones or muscles, it literally alters your brain chemistry. Inside your brain, you have receptors specifically designed for vitamin D, and when those receptors don't get enough of it, neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine don't function the way they should. These are the very chemicals that keep you feeling stable, motivated, and happy. That's why so many people with vitamin D deficiency experience depression, anxiety, irritability, and even that heavy brain fog where you can't think clearly. The scary part is most people never link their mood struggles to a nutritional deficiency. They blame stress, work, relationships, or just assume it's part of life. But when vitamin D is restored to normal levels, it's like a light switch turns back on. The fog lifts, the sadness eases, and mental clarity returns. That's the power this one nutrient has over your emotional and cognitive health. Your immune system is like an army, always on guard, ready to fight off invaders like viruses, bacteria, and even abnormal cells. But here's the critical role of vitamin D. It acts like the commander that wakes up the soldiers. Without vitamin D, those immune cells, especially the T cells, stay inactive. They don't recognize threats, they don't attack properly, and your defense system becomes weak. That's why people with low vitamin D get sick more often, they take longer to recover, and they are more vulnerable to chronic illnesses. It's almost as if the alarm system in your body has been turned off and threats slip right past it. This is why during the winter months, when sun exposure is low, flu cases spike, infections rise, and people feel drained. It's not just the cold weather, it's the lack of vitamin D shutting down the very system designed to protect you. When you think about heart problems, most people instantly blame cholesterol, sugar, or genetics, but very few ever consider vitamin D. And yet, Research shows that low vitamin D plays a massive role in heart health. Here's why. Vitamin D helps regulate blood pressure by keeping your arteries flexible and reducing stiffness. Without it, your arteries harden, blood pressure rises, and the heart has to work overtime just to push blood through. On top of that, low vitamin D levels are linked to higher inflammation inside the arteries, which creates the perfect environment for plaque buildup and blockages. That means the risk of heart attack or stroke goes way up, not just because of diet, but because the body is missing this one key nutrient. Think of it like this: your heart is an engine, and vitamin D is part of the oil that keeps it running smoothly. When it's missing, friction increases, damage builds, and sooner or later, the engine breaks down. That's exactly what happens inside your cardiovascular system when vitamin D is deficient. One of the most frustrating things people experience is trying everything to lose weight, cutting calories, exercising, avoiding sugar, and still the scale doesn't move. What most don't realize is that vitamin D is deeply tied to metabolism and insulin regulation. When your vitamin D levels are low, your cells become less sensitive to insulin, meaning more sugar gets stored as fat instead of being burned for energy. This creates a cycle where fat storage increases, cravings intensify, and energy drops, making it even harder to stay consistent with healthy habits. On top of that, vitamin D deficiency influences certain hormones that control appetite, so you're hungrier more often and it feels like your body is working against you. This is why many people hit a weight loss plateau. They're doing everything right, but their vitamin D is sabotaging their progress. Once you correct that deficiency, metabolism starts working more efficiently, fat burning improves, and suddenly the same efforts that felt hopeless finally begin to pay off. One of the scariest connections with vitamin D deficiency is its link to cancer. See, vitamin D isn't just about helping your bones or mood. It actually controls how cells grow and divide. When your body has enough vitamin D, it helps regulate abnormal cell growth, almost like a built-in safety mechanism that prevents damaged cells from multiplying. But when vitamin D is low, that protective system weakens and the chances of uncontrolled cell growth skyrocket. That's why studies consistently show higher risks of breast cancer, colon cancer, and prostate cancer in people with low vitamin D levels. What makes this even more dangerous is that most people don't notice the deficiency until years later, when serious health problems have already developed. It's like a silent trigger being pulled inside the body without pain or warning signs, and yet the long-term effects can be life-threatening. Simply by restoring vitamin D, you're not just protecting your bones and mood, you're potentially lowering your risk of one of the deadliest diseases out there. Fatigue is one of the most common complaints people have, and yet it's also one of the most misunderstood. They assume it's from working too hard, not sleeping enough, or just getting older. But when you look deeper, low vitamin D plays a major role in why the body feels so drained all the time. Vitamin D is involved in how your mitochondria, the energy factories inside your cells, produce fuel. Without enough vitamin D, those mitochondria don't generate energy efficiently, and that leaves you feeling tired even after a full night's rest. This is why some people drag themselves through the day with caffeine, sugar, or energy drinks, only to crash later, because the real problem isn't a lack of stimulation, it's a lack of cellular energy production. Add to that the muscle weakness, the immune stress, and the mood changes caused by vitamin D deficiency, and suddenly fatigue becomes a constant part of daily life. Correcting that deficiency is like turning the power back on. You don't just get a little boost. You restore the body's natural ability to create lasting energy from within. Most people don't realize that the simplest and most natural way to get vitamin D is through something so ordinary, so available, and yet so overlooked: sunlight. It doesn't cost money, it doesn't require a prescription, and it doesn't come in a bottle. Just standing in the sun for a short period can trigger a powerful chemical reaction inside your skin, creating the exact nutrient that your body is starving for. But here's the problem: despite how easy it sounds, vitamin D deficiency has now become a global epidemic. Billions of people around the world are deficient, and they don't even know it. And the shocking part is this: it's not because sunlight disappeared, it's because modern life has quietly pulled us away from this natural source, and our health is paying the price. Think about how humans lived for thousands of years. Our ancestors worked outside, they hunted, gathered, farmed, traveled, and built under the open sky. Their skin was exposed to sunlight for hours each day, and vitamin D deficiency was rare. Fast forward to today, and look at how our lifestyles have changed. We spend most of our time indoors, sitting in offices, driving cars, working under artificial lights, and staring at screens. Even children, who once played outside for hours, now spend the majority of their day indoors, glued to devices. By the time the average person walks outside, it's often either early morning or evening, when the sunlight is too weak to trigger vitamin D production. And even if we do step out in the middle of the day, sunscreen, clothing, pollution, and even the glass of car windows block the UVB rays that are needed to make vitamin D. The result: a worldwide deficiency that silently chips away at our health. Now let's go a bit deeper into how this works. When the sun's UVB rays hit your skin, they interact with cholesterol present in your skin cells. That cholesterol is converted into previtamin D3, which is then transformed by your liver and kidneys into the active form of vitamin D that your body uses. This isn't just some surface-level reaction, it's a vital biological process. Without exposure to the right kind of sunlight, that chain of reactions never gets triggered, and no matter how much time you spend indoors under bright lights, you're not making vitamin D. Ordinary light bulbs, LEDs, or even fancy indoor lamps don't produce UVB rays in the right spectrum. Only the sun can provide that. But here's where it gets even more interesting: this process only works efficiently when certain conditions are met. The angle of the sun has to be high enough in the sky. That's why in many countries, especially during winter, no matter how long you stand outside, your skin simply cannot produce vitamin D. If you live far from the equator, you may go months with almost zero natural vitamin D production. And that's one of the reasons deficiency is so common in northern regions where sunlight is limited for much of the year. People who think they're safe because they occasionally go outside don't realize that if the sun's angle is too low, their skin isn't producing anything. Another factor that makes this deficiency worse is skin pigmentation. The more melanin you have, the harder it is for your skin to produce vitamin D. This is why darker-skinned individuals need significantly more sun exposure compared to lighter-skinned individuals to generate the same amount of vitamin D. For example, someone with very light skin might only need 15 minutes of midday sun a few times a week, while someone with darker skin might need an hour or more under the same conditions. But in today's busy lifestyle, hardly anyone is getting that kind of exposure, regardless of skin tone. Now think about what happens when we do go outside. Most people apply sunscreen. And while sunscreen is marketed as protection against skin cancer, what it actually does is block the UVB rays that are required for vitamin D synthesis. Even a sunscreen with SPF 15 can reduce vitamin D production by more than 90%. SPF 30 can block it almost completely. So on one hand, we are told to avoid the sun to protect ourselves from skin damage, but on the other hand, avoiding it creates a deficiency that increases our risk of bone disease, autoimmune conditions, heart disease, depression, and even cancer. This is the paradox of modern health advice. If you look at how our daily environment has changed, you'll see why this deficiency is spreading so fast. Air pollution reduces the intensity of UVB rays reaching the ground. Tall buildings in cities block sunlight from reaching people walking below. Office workers spend 8 to 10 hours under artificial light, and by the time they leave work, the sun is setting. Children are kept indoors for safety, school, and screen time, and even when we do take vacations, we're often covering ourselves with hats, sunglasses, and sunscreen. The very thing our body needs most, we've been taught to fear or avoid. Let me give you a picture of how severe this problem has become. Studies estimate that about 1 billion people globally are deficient in vitamin D. In the United States alone, over 40% of adults have low levels, and the numbers are even higher in certain populations, like older adults, people with darker skin, and those living in colder climates. In countries where women wear full body coverings, deficiency rates can reach up to 90%. And this isn't just a minor problem. Low vitamin D levels are linked to higher rates of diabetes, multiple sclerosis, certain cancers, depression, and even premature death. Imagine that a deficiency in something as simple as sunlight exposure could increase your risk of dying earlier. What's even more shocking is that doctors and patients often miss the signs: fatigue, frequent colds, muscle weakness, bone pain, mood swings. These are brushed off as normal aging or stress. Rarely does someone ask, could this be vitamin D? Instead, people are given painkillers, antidepressants, or antibiotics, while the root cause goes unaddressed. This is why so many people live for years in a state of low energy and poor health when the solution could be as simple as restoring their vitamin D levels. But it's not just about the physical effects. There's also a deeper impact on quality of life. When your vitamin D is low, you feel less motivated, less clear-headed, and less resilient. Your mood dips, your energy crashes, and your immune system falters. Over time, this shapes the way you live your life. You start avoiding activities because you're too tired. You withdraw socially because you're not feeling mentally sharp. You miss opportunities because your body and mind aren't functioning at full capacity. All of this creates a downward spiral that's hard to escape. And yet, when you finally correct the deficiency, the transformation can be dramatic. Suddenly, energy returns, mood stabilizes, immune strength improves, and life feels vibrant again. Let's talk about solutions. Sunlight is the most natural way, but we have to be strategic about it. The best time for vitamin D synthesis is midday, when the sun is at its highest point. That's when UVB rays are strongest. Depending on your skin type, exposing arms, legs, and face for 15 to 30 minutes a few times per week can generate significant vitamin D. But remember, this has to be without sunscreen. Even a short session of direct exposure can trigger thousands of units of vitamin D production. If you can't get enough from the sun, supplementation becomes critical. Vitamin D3 is the preferred form because it's the same form your skin produces, and it's far more effective than vitamin D2. Pairing vitamin D3 with K2 is even better because K2 helps direct calcium into your bones where it belongs, instead of letting it build up in your arteries. Another strategy is diet, but here's the truth: food sources of vitamin D are limited. Fatty fish like salmon, sardines, and mackerel, along with cod liver oil, are among the richest natural sources. Egg yolks and liver also contain some, but nowhere near the levels you can get from sunlight or supplements. That's why relying on diet alone is usually not enough, especially if you're already deficient. Now let me share something most people overlook. Vitamin D doesn't work in isolation. It interacts with other nutrients and systems in your body. For instance, magnesium is required to activate vitamin D. If you're deficient in magnesium, even taking vitamin D supplements won't work efficiently. Zinc also plays a role in how your immune system responds to vitamin D. And as I mentioned, vitamin K2 ensures calcium is deposited in the right places. This means that when we talk about fixing vitamin D, we can't just think of it as one single pill or one single nutrient. We need to see it as part of a network. The real challenge is mindset. We've been conditioned to believe that health comes from external interventions, pills, treatments, or quick fixes, when in reality, the most powerful solutions are often the simplest and most natural. Sunlight, movement, sleep, and proper nutrition are foundational, but they're also the first things people neglect. If you tell someone to sit outside in the midday sun for 20 minutes 3 times a week, many will shrug it off as too simple. But if you prescribe them a new pill with fancy marketing, they'll take it without question. We need to shift our perspective back to nature, back to the basics, because that's where true health is restored. The epidemic of vitamin D deficiency is a wake-up call. It tells us that despite all our modern conveniences, technology, and medical advances, we are drifting further from the natural rhythms that kept humans healthy for thousands of years. We have traded sunlight for screens, fresh air for air conditioning, movement for chairs, and the result is widespread illness that feels normal but isn't. Correcting vitamin D deficiency is not just about fixing one nutrient, it's about reconnecting with a fundamental part of being human, about aligning ourselves again with the environment we were designed to live in. Have you ever thought about how much time you actually spend in direct sunlight? Not just walking from your car to your office or from your front door to the mailbox, but real exposure, your skin in contact with natural light for more than just a few minutes. If you start adding it up, you'll realize that for most people today, the answer is almost none. And that is where one of the biggest health problems of our time begins. Vitamin D deficiency has quietly become a global epidemic, not because sunlight disappeared, but because our modern lifestyle keeps us locked away from it. The body was designed to interact with the sun. That relationship is ancient, built into our DNA, and yet modern habits have broken that connection, leaving millions of people sick, fatigued, and struggling without understanding why. When we talk about vitamin D, most people think of it as a simple nutrient, but it's much more than that. It's a hormone, a signaling molecule that tells your body what to do. Without it, hundreds of processes inside your body slow down or malfunction. Now here's where lifestyle enters the picture. The reason this deficiency is so common is not because our bodies suddenly forgot how to produce vitamin D. It's because we've radically changed the way we live. Think about the typical day: wake up, get ready indoors, commute inside a car or a bus, work under artificial lighting for 8 to 10 hours, drive home, spend the evening in front of screens, and then sleep. Where in that cycle did your skin ever get meaningful contact with the sun? For most people, the answer is nowhere. And even when we do get a chance to go outside, the sun exposure is often blocked. We sit in cars with tinted windows, we walk under tall buildings, or we cover our skin with clothing and sunscreen. Even on a bright sunny day, many people are still not synthesizing vitamin D because the UVB rays that trigger production are never reaching their skin. Imagine that a planet filled with sunlight, and yet humans are living as if they're underground. The body was not designed for this. For thousands of years, our ancestors farmed, hunted, gathered, and lived outdoors. They weren't counting minutes of exposure, they were immersed in it daily. That's why vitamin D deficiency was not the epidemic then that it is today. Let's break down why this deficiency is so tightly connected to lifestyle. First, look at indoor living. The average adult spends over 90% of their time indoors. Children who once played outside for hours are now glued to screens, confined within classrooms, or kept inside for safety. Offices and schools are lit with artificial light, but here's the key. Artificial light does not contain the UVB spectrum needed for vitamin D synthesis. Your skin doesn't care how bright the light is. Without UVB, it cannot make vitamin D. That means you could sit in the brightest office all day and still produce zero vitamin D. Now, let's talk about the fear of the sun. For decades, people have been told to avoid sunlight to prevent skin cancer. Sunscreen commercials, dermatology warnings, public health campaigns, they've all drilled the same message. Sunlight is dangerous. So what do people do? They cover themselves, they slather on sunscreen, they wear hats and sunglasses, and in the process, they block out the very rays that create vitamin D. Even a sunscreen with SPF 15 reduces vitamin D production by over 90%, and SPF 30 can block it almost entirely. So, while trying to protect themselves from one health issue, people are unknowingly creating another, much bigger one. The modern diet also plays a role. Yes, you can get some vitamin D from foods like fatty fish, egg yolks, and liver, but the levels are minimal compared to what your body can generate from just a short time in the sun. A few minutes of midday sunlight can produce thousands of units of vitamin D, while a serving of fish might only give you a few hundred. That means if you rely on food alone, you'd have to eat massive amounts every single day just to match what the sun can provide in minutes. Our ancestors didn't rely on diet for vitamin D. They relied on sunlight because that was nature's design. Now let's consider geography and climate. If you live far from the equator, your opportunity to make vitamin D from sunlight shrinks dramatically in the winter months. The angle of the sun becomes too low, and even if you stand outside for hours, your skin is not synthesizing anything. This is why people in northern regions have some of the highest rates of deficiency, especially during the colder months when they're bundled up in layers of clothing. Combine that with indoor living, and it's no wonder deficiency has become the rule rather than the exception. Skin pigmentation adds another layer. The more melanin you have, the more natural protection your skin has against UV rays, but that also means it takes longer to produce vitamin D. Someone with light skin might need only 15 minutes in the sun to generate enough vitamin D, while someone with darker skin may need an hour or more under the same conditions. In a lifestyle where people are already getting minimal exposure, that difference can mean the line between adequate levels and chronic deficiency. And then there's pollution. In urban environments, smog and air pollution filter out UVB rays. So even if you're outside, the sunlight that reaches your skin may not be strong enough to trigger vitamin D production. That means people living in crowded, polluted cities are at an even greater risk, despite technically being in sunny regions. It's not just about being outside. It's about the quality of the sunlight that actually makes it to your skin. Now imagine what all of this adds up to. Billions of people worldwide, living mostly indoors, blocking sunlight with clothing and sunscreen, eating diets that can't compensate, living in climates where the sun isn't strong enough, and breathing polluted air that filters out UVB rays. It's the perfect recipe for deficiency, and the consequences of that deficiency are enormous. Low vitamin D is linked to bone weakness, muscle pain, depression, poor immune function, heart disease, weight gain, cancer risk, and chronic fatigue. It touches almost every system in the body. This isn't just about one nutrient being a little low. This is about a lifestyle that has removed one of the body's most essential building blocks. The irony is that this problem is so easy to fix. Step outside, let your skin absorb direct sunlight, and your body will do the rest. But because of fear, convenience, and modern habits, people don't do it. They might spend hundreds of dollars on supplements, medications, or treatments, while ignoring the most natural solution available for free. And yes, supplements are sometimes necessary, especially in regions where sunlight is limited, but the first step should always be restoring that natural connection with the sun. The body was never meant to be starved of light. Think about how you feel after spending time outdoors in the sun. Your energy improves, your mood lifts, you sleep better at night. That's not just in your head, it's biology. Sunlight triggers vitamin D production, regulates your circadian rhythm, influences serotonin levels, and activates pathways that keep your body in balance. When you cut yourself off from that, you're cutting off the signals your body depends on to thrive. Modern lifestyle has made deficiency normal, but normal doesn't mean healthy. Just because everyone around you is tired, overweight, anxious, or dealing with health issues doesn't mean that's how the human body is supposed to function. The absence of sunlight has silently become one of the greatest health mistakes of our time, and until people start reconnecting with it, no amount of pills or quick fixes will truly restore health.